Here's what we're working on today. I don't have the front strut yet. It's on the way. I'm working on this rear one. So here's the rear strut, how it attaches. The rivets, I don't have those in there yet. One thing that you might want to do, the strut ends just outside of here, it shows it ending. You can move this down and cut this out, take that out, and then the whole thing will slide down so it's more streamlined all the way right down to the mount itself. And I'll talk about that later on. We're doing this connection here with the rear strut. I'm going to put in the bolt for the jury strut and all the way up to the top mount as well. The plans are the plans. So there's different size bushings and things they have for there, and a lot of these little bushings that are in there aren't really the correct size. I stayed with the basics of this. So 1/3 distance from the end to there, so 1.5 inches there. The bushings inside the strut are different. The bolt size, I used a bigger bolt. I upsized everything there just because it's easier to get. Again, on the plans here, it shows a little better view of what's going on. It's still hard to understand, but that's what we're working on today. To supplement that, I'm also using building the Dakota Hawk with tri-gear. He's got good examples, pictures of how to attach the various ends of the strut. So that's another resource I used, and hopefully the people out there will also have this resource to use. And let's get at it. There's the rear strut, and I made a little mistake. Well, not really. I just cut it off flush here. I was watching the Dakota Hawk, and he cut this portion out here, so the whole thing slipped over and this came down here, and it looked better. It's not going to make any difference, but it looked better because the streamlining went all the way down to here. So up on this end, I've created this. Will go into here, and then this will get mounted onto the wing inside there. I don't have any of this connected yet because you have to set it all up, set the wing angle, and then drill your holes. I drilled the pad hole through there. Drill the holes so that the wing is at the correct height to get all this connected. Now I'm also thinking on this rear one, they've got a screw and bolt on there, and it doesn't say anywhere, but I'm assuming you have a little bit of adjustment there for the wing washout so that the wing is washed out on the outside. Rear outside is going to be a little bit higher, and that's the washout for the entire wing. And I'm assuming that's why it has the little screw on there, so you can adjust that to get it at just the right angle. When the front strut gets here, he'll go from there down to this main connection here. Now, I don't know if I've shown you all of the details on how this one was built. The last I had, we were talking about this and figuring out what to do there. I've got a good thick 2 layers in there, so that's done. This is as per plans. I think the plans had some weird thing that this was a different size than this. That's 3/4 inch. There's another one inside there to call a double bracing for that bolt that holds that on. I don't have the rivets in here yet. I'm going to get it all set up and figure out exactly how long that's got to be. And that's the same as this. So this one called for a couple different layers in there and a different size bolt. I just went with a bigger bolt to add the strength to that. They were going with a smaller one. So we couldn't find the correct size tubing to nest inside a couple of these and then just get a regular, I think it was a 3/16 or something bolt in there. I went with a bigger bolt so that I have more weight, but I've got all the strength that I'll need there. On this, with all of them, I've got epoxy between the outer and the bolt there so that it's not going anywhere. And when I put that screw or the bolt through there, it's going to be good and tight in there. And then you can use this as a micro adjustment for that washout, is what I'm assuming why it has the nut on there. So the lower strut mount, upper strut mount, and before we get that into place permanently, we need the jury struts to be marked and support in the middle of the strut put in there for the jury strut attachment. So I've got the strut mounted almost exactly where it's going to be. The end of the wing is marked off at the proper height. It's attached to the plane is level, and I've got a plumb bob, and you probably can't see it, on where the jury strut attachment is on the wing. The plumb bob is hanging down. So right where it crosses, that is where the jury strut attachment point will go. Now we have to mark it now because at each end of the strut, it's going to be sealed up and riveted and everything. But in the middle here, we need to put a spacer inside the strut to keep the strut from collapsing when you screw in the eye hole that's going to support the jury strut. So we just need a little support inside of this strut. And the way to mark that is using the plumb bob, just coming straight down, and that's where the strut attachment point will be. All right, so I marked the strut, drilled it, and that will be where the jury strut comes in. Now, to add support in there, so when you clamp it, it doesn't collapse the strut. So what you do is tape a little bushing onto a stick, and you stick the stick in there. And then you can get it all the way up there and hopefully line up the holes, and I'll let you know how that works. I think it worked. So I took the little round tube, cut it to length, taped it onto there. I slid that all the way up there and just slid the eye bolt right on through. All right, so here's the strut. This will go down on the fuselage end. There's the eye bolt put in for the jury strut. And here is the top mount where it'll attach to the wing. I've epoxied this bushing to the bolt. There's a hole cut in there, and the nut is on there to adjust this in and out, to slightly adjust that wing washout. I'm assuming that's why they have a nut on there. I've got the hole drilled through the strut, but not through the bolt yet. So I'm going to put it on, once this little nut is screwed down to wherever it is to get it into the exact position, then I can drill that, and then that rear strut will be complete. So here's your mock-up. Nothing's been bolted in yet, but there's the top mount. There's your nut that I'll use to adjust it to lift that wing up just slightly. There's your jury strut attach. And there is the bottom mounted there. And I've just got it all mocked up right now. I'll have to wait to get the front strut to get it into position where it has to be. But that's a mock-up of that strut. And that's the rear strut. And I'm still waiting to get the main strut.